All right, welcome Team ET. Great to have you back for yet another week. And as I always say, we have a fantastic guest lined up. Mark Hodgson, great to have you on the ET project. We're going to have a lot of fun, I'm sure, just based on the banter that we had before I hit record. We're going to be talking a lot about the transition, if you like, between the second half of your career or your life, if you like, and as we move, in our case, from the corporate world to looking at business ourselves, we'll be talking a lot around that. But I can't miss the opportunity, Mark, to just to have a little bit of a dig and address the elephant in the room. So for those that didn't pick up or haven't picked up yet, Mark is in Australia, sitting in Sydney, but you may pick up from his accent that he's not born and bred in Australia. He comes from the mothership in the UK, and therefore, even though when this podcast is released, it's going to be past tense, I can't avoid addressing the elephant in the room, which is the Ashes series of cricket that's going on at the moment. I know we have a big Indian listener base in our team, Mark, and of course Australia has just knocked off the Indian team in the World Test, right? So it's looking reasonably optimistic for Test number 1. That's in day 5, right as we speak. So how are you feeling?
Well, hi, Wayne. Hi, everyone. Really, a real pleasure to be on the podcast. Yeah, it's fascinating. I say it will be interesting to see how time treats this podcast. We're speaking on the just before the start of the 5th day of the first test, and I think Australia they need 175 runs to win or something like that, and they're 3 down. And it's a day 5 wickets. And I'm not a massive cricket tragic, but it's certainly been an electrifying contest. The English, as I say, I'm a native Pom, as they call them here in Australia, and we've done what we do best. When in trouble, and if you remember, up until a couple of years ago, the English cricket team were all over the place. So we employed some foreigners, specifically some New Zealanders. So we've got a New Zealand coach. And also a lot of my mates here argue that we've got a New Zealand player in our captain, Stokes. So either way, it's looking very exciting. And they play this new brand of thing called Bazball, which is like attack. It's like you score 100, we'll score 150, which is I'm going to say it's a very un-English approach. We tend to be very conservative, and it's been electrifying. So yeah, it's exciting. So and I think you'll agree, the fact whoever wins, hopefully it's the Poms, but if it's not, that's okay. It's been a great contest, which is really what you want, and both sides are playing to win, not to draw or drag it out. So yeah, exciting.
It is exciting. I had the honor of playing or organising and playing a match in India, and you can probably imagine for an Australian playing against either the English or the Indians is really the pinnacle of what you want to do if you're a cricket player. And I had that honour, and it was fantastic. It was just a social corporate event. We got thoroughly flogged, by the way.
You got topped. Good for you.
Yeah. But anyway, very good. What apart from cricket, what's got you excited about life or the world at the moment?
Great question. I mean, what was it? Confucius wished on us, may you live in interesting times, I think he said. And we certainly do. I mean, I think you and I are a similar vintage, Wayne. I'm 58, and I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say, as a 35 something year corporate professional in one way, shape or form, I can't remember anything as amazing and different, challenging, transformative, I suppose, transformational as the last 3 years, from COVID and from obviously the COVID piece itself, where the world changed. I talk about this idea. We had 5 years of change in 5 months. And I think we really did. And even perhaps more interesting, because that now, as that recedes into the rear view mirror, is where we are now, where the world is now. Lots of change, lots of, I suppose we're seeing some adverse things, that COVID hangover economically around the globe, and how organizations, governments are kind of responding to that. Now we're seeing those sort of colder economic winds blowing through. And it's challenging. We were just talking about before we came on air. I don't think it's ever been a more challenging time to be a leader. But the flip of that, and I'm an eternal optimist, I also think there's probably never been more opportunity, because in a sense, we've all come out of the pandemic years, and that's been a great leveler. And I think, whoever you were, whatever you achieved, whatever plaudits or things successes you had or didn't have pre-COVID, now we all get really to restart and go again, because I think a lot of the skills and attributes, qualities that would help us to be successful in, where are we now, like 2019, 2020. Sometimes I think they're not necessarily the same ones we need now. We need to be a lot more versatile. I think we need to be braver. I think things like communication and originality, creativity, energy, if you like, are much more important than they were. Sort of last year, plus a bit thinking, that incrementalism, I think that's more challenged. So yeah, for those of us who are in the game of growing people and helping people to fulfill their total potential, I think it's exciting times. Not easy, not without risk for sure, but I think for those who are ready to have a crack, I think these are really the times full of opportunity.
Yeah, I'm with you in that regard. I see it as a challenge for sure. I mean, life and business is always a challenge, but it's how you approach it. And as you said, if you have the right mindset, we'll talk more about that later, but if you have that willingness and that attitude, then there's the opportunities there that probably may not have existed pre-COVID. There'll probably be a lot of naysayers to that comment, I can imagine, because there'll be some that are struggling. We're going to jump in. Sorry, mate. We're going to jump into a conversation, or a term that you've coined, which is your second half hero. We're going to talk about that in more detail in a minute. And there's a lot that hangs off that, of course, and we'll talk about becoming an influencer. But I'm wondering, what was life like for you before you entered this second half of your journey? So what were you doing? How did you start your career, and what led you to this point?
Yeah, fantastic. So, and I'll try and be brief, because I'm a talker. So I'll try not to try the patience of the audience too much. So yeah, born in the UK. My career, I started working in media and advertising. So I sold TV airtime back in the day in London.
Wow.
Which was really exciting, quite glamorous, and that I really like that industry. And that took me, spent about 5 years doing that in the UK, and then my then girlfriend, now wife, she got a job in Budapest in Hungary, and then she found me a job in media, and so I went over there. And bear in mind, this is just after this is the mid-90s, just after the Berlin Wall the end of the Cold War. The wall came down, so Hungary and other post-Soviet former Soviet countries were emerging from communism, soft communism at that point, and it was just an amazing place to be. So we spent 5 years there. I ran a media business in outdoor advertising, and so had massive experience of living and working in really interesting times. Probably the most fascinating times I can remember. And then during that, we also came to Australia on holiday. Fell in love with Australia. Fell in love with the sun. I love water sports. And the UK, beautiful as it is not the best place for water sports because of the climate. And that brought us here. So I sort of continued my career in media and advertising, came to Australia, as over time became more and more interested in I guess, the leadership and change aspects of running businesses, growing businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then I suppose also at the same time I got a little bit disenfranchised with the media business, advertising business, and as I suppose it's a young person's business. As you grow older, I think there's a tendency to outgrow it a little bit. I became more fascinated in change and leadership. My last corporate role, I decided to leave advertising, and my last corporate role, I ended up working for a large not-for-profit leading a corporate transformation. And we turned $1 million loss into a $4 million profit in 3 years. And I just loved that. And we did that the right way. That wasn't through sort of stripping lots of costs out of the business. That was really by leading people. And I love the definition that the role of a leader is to bring out the greatness in others. And I like to think that that's what I did there. Just removed blocks and just enabled people to thrive and really do their jobs to their full potential. And the bottom line, that sorted itself out. And at the end of that experience, which is about 12 years ago now, the CEO basically he said, "Thanks for fixing that up, Mark. Now we're making you and your team redundant." Yeah, thanks for coming. And which was wrong on a lot of levels. I mean, from an ego, it was hurtful from an ego perspective. But more importantly, what it actually said to me was the organization lacked ambition. They just aspired to mediocrity rather than greatness. So rather than say, "Hey, look at the amazing job that division has done," and we transformed it, and not just me, my team. And rather than saying, "Hey, how can we take some of what's going on there and move that to some of the other parts of the organization?" They basically said, "Hey, thanks for fixing up the red ink over there. Now you can leave." Which really brings me to the guts of what I'm about. I was probably seen as a bit of a corporate maverick, bit impatient for change, probably ruffled a few feathers, scared a few horses on the way through. And on the other side of that redundancy, which is the first time I'd ever been made redundant, it was I was so shocked. But on the other side, I decided to set out on my own, and so that's what I'm doing for the last 12 years. And I've been coaching execs and teams around leadership, especially thought leadership and change. So that kind of brings me to where I am today. I've been doing that for well over a decade, and love it. But I think, coming back to your question, one of the things that I love about doing what I get to do, and I think what you get to do, Wayne, is to carry on that idea of bringing out the greatness in others, really helping people to remove roadblocks and thrive. So I love doing that, and I get to do that without any boundaries from corporates or CEOs, something like that, which is gorgeous.
You can wake up every morning and look forward to what's ahead rather than think about the challenges that you might have to overcome through other people. Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned that you've worked in a number of different countries, and obviously that means you work with different cultures.
Yep.
Is there any takeaway learnings, or what's some of the greatest gifts that came out of that exposure?
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose. I mean, I worked in probably the one that I remember working in Central Europe and in Hungary specifically, and everything was translated. So you had to go to the meeting where everything was translated. So my staff all spoke English, and I learned to speak a little bit of Hungarian in the end, but certainly not enough to do business.
Right.
But what was interesting to me, I mean, was the fierce intelligence of the Hungarians. And what was interesting culturally in that, we'd gone there because this was a post communist era, and we were meant to be the bright thinkers from the West who came in to educate educate the poor undereducated Eastern Europeans and so forth. But it became very clear very quickly that massive intelligence, really high standards of education, and I suppose the cultural truth is everyone wanted to grow, everyone wanted to learn. There was a real appetite for change and growth and success in one sense, but not just in a money sort of make a ton of money sense, but in that sense of growth and professional success. And so I've seen that across the world. And interestingly, and just to sort of round this off, I actually did a few stints. I worked in Moscow for around 9 months on and off there, going back in media and advertising. And what was interesting there, I mean, notwithstanding so given what's happened now with Ukraine and so forth, I worked with some amazing people in Moscow, just the same as Australians or Brits or Americans or anyone else I've ever worked with. So, there's great people everywhere. And I think, if I can if there's a conclusion from my particular experience, is that, most people in most cultures, they want to do their best. They want to learn, they want to grow. They want to be successful for themselves. They want to be successful for their families. And there's if you're able to help people to do that, I think that's kind of a universal truth, certainly in the countries I've worked in. There's obviously other countries where that may not be true culturally, but certainly in inverted commas, the West or the emerging West or emerging first world countries, that's certainly been my experience. So it's a lovely thing to observe. And I'll just finish with one final thought on that. One of the lovely things that I really love is when working with some of the talent in some of the more emerging countries. So I've got several people who work with me, for example, in the Philippines, and their attitude and their can-do-ness and their positivity is amazing. And it's a bit of a tonic, because sometimes you get a bit of a jaded attitude from maybe some Australians or from Brits or others who kind of, oh, do I have to go to work, and all this the whole work from home conversation, which I'm sure you've done to death. And sometimes that positivity of people are just grateful to have a great job, love learning, love doing stuff, come with amazing attitude. That can be really refreshing. So I think that shouldn't be lost on us either.
Look, I can only concur. I mean, I've had the luxury of working in many countries around the world, and almost identical observations what you just explained. So I have a belief that at our core, we share some similar values, regardless of which country we're in. So, it's often unfortunate when I hear, particularly, let's say, leading Western countries that have this mindset that everyone else is maybe not quite as good. But as you said, when you actually get there, there's some brilliant people everywhere in the world.
Yeah, and often who place a higher value on education and study, and really just so smart, so driven, so accomplished, and doing extraordinary things.
Absolutely. Let's jump into this term. I like this term, but I need you to explain it further. So, second half hero. What's it all about?
Right. So second half hero, I guess it's, that piece I've just described about, I guess, my personal transformation or reinvention from a corporate leader to set out my own shingle and build my own consultancy business.
Yep.
That is more than going from getting a salary to sending invoices and working for yourself. It's actually much more. It's bigger than that, and I think there's some aspects around that I know a lot of the work I do and end up doing and kind of drawn to. I'm drawn to it, and I think people are drawn to me because I think a lot of us are looking for that second chapter of our lives. Maybe corporate roles are great. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with corporate roles, and corporate roles might be the right thing for a lot of people, but also. For whatever reason, and especially at certain ages, I think certain sort of seasons of our life, I think a lot of professionals actually work at, either they've done their run of a corporate, they've done 20 years, they've done as much as they can do, or they're a bit frustrated, or they're bored or stuck, or they kind of feel they're being passed over, or they kind of feel maybe, I did this for a certain period of time and it's one chapter, I'm really glad I did it, but now I kind of hanker for something else. So, for example, I came out of media and advertising, and what I do now, yes, there's some overlap in terms of some of I do a lot of communications and thought leadership sort of stuff. So I have an understanding, a technical understanding of some things, but really they're quite completely different. Media sales is about making money and only making money, really. with a nice picture around it, but essentially that's what it's about. It's a sales role, a sales function. And what I do now is much more creative and much more about nurturing and growing other people. So that for me is that pivot, and it's helping people to take that pivot from to uncover that second half. Now you may have multiple second halves, so it's not as linear as first half, second half. But I like the idea of the second half and that reinvention transformation. And the hero piece comes really because if it's just a sort of a natural evolution, then that's probably not going to be that heroic. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're actually really looking to change direction, and there's not an obvious path from where you are to where you want to get to, and that feels like a real pivot, then that's where the hero piece comes in, and it draws on the hero's journey, which many listeners would be aware of. I haven't got time to do the whole thing, but fundamentally, the hero's journey basically says, every one of us has an heroic adventure inside of us. We probably aspire and hanker for certain things in our world, and sometimes we move towards them, but oftentimes we don't. We have to park those great visions and ambitions because of circumstance or being pragmatic or earning a living, and sometimes these things we kind of where the direction of our life is taking isn't really going towards that heroic best self. So we need to go on our own hero's journey, and that really means usually taking on a bit of courage, a bit of bravery, and to use the vernacular of the hero's journey book, we need to cross the threshold. And crossing the threshold is really going into the unknown, going on an adventure, and then taking actions, taking steps, and then a whole lot of things happen on the other side of that. And you'll see that in every movie you've ever seen is really based on the hero's journey. Is a everyday sort of suburban scene, and then something happens. There's a plane crash. The aliens invade. Something happens, and then our heroes go off on some crazy, unexpected adventure. And really, the hero thing from second half hero is really encouraging people to go on your own hero's journey. Get out of your comfort zone. If there's something you aspire to, have a crack at it. Take some risks. Don't die wondering. I use this term, life's too short to play it small. I had a very good friend, Simon Jordan, who died about 18 months ago, 52 from a heart attack. He was the most out there, outward bounds, enthusiastic, project starting, charitable, kind of crazy guy doing stuff. And he lived life very much to the full. And he was plucked untimely very much from the world. And you kind of think, when you see people like that, he lived life to the full. And too many of us, I think, sort of, we go that Groundhog Day thing, or we fear the change, or we want something, but we're not prepared to go after it. And I really encourage people, and through that whole idea of second half hero, to embrace that change, take on the risk, cross the threshold, and go on that adventure. And that adventure usually means moving away from your comfort zone and the status quo. There will be risk associated with it, probably, but when you start, there's a lovely quote that says, boldness kind of attracts its own rewards. When you take a step, when you start moving, you almost always find stuff starts to happen. People come into your world, resources, partnerships, opportunity, adventure, failure for sure. But I always say it this way: all you can guarantee is if you sit at your desk all your life and wait for the world to come and land on your desk and amazing things to happen, the chances of that are pretty much zero. You are guaranteed to fail if that's your strategy. Go out there, have a crack, cross the threshold, go on an adventure, and at least you have a chance of making what you want happen. So that's second half here in a very sort of butchered kind of short version of it. I hope that makes sense.
It's fantastic. We run a new campaign every month, and 2 or 3 months back now, we did a challenge, a 3-day challenge, I think, on storytelling. And the hero's journey, of course, is one of the storytelling methods. So it makes a lot of sense for our listeners.
Awesome.
As a segue from that, you also talk about then what's required as you transition. And you say that to succeed in today's world, you really need to stand out. And,
Yeah.
you know, being good at what you do is no longer enough. You have to be able to showcase and demonstrate how you bring value,
Yeah.
and particularly through your personal brand. So
Yeah.
I like that very much. But the question that always comes up when we make those statements is, yes, that's great, but how? How do we create our brand? How do we really make such a difference and stand out when it's such a crowded world? So
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, and the and this is I do a lot of work in this area of personal branding and thought leadership, and I know because I've been doing it for a long time that a lot of people find it very daunting and
Yep.
scary, and therefore they never start. And they think, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I'll run out of stuff to say, or if I try to put my head up in my marketplace, 100 people will jump on me and say, who are you to say that? What do you know? I know more than you. And there's a whole load of sort of self-talk, usually uninformed self-talk that's going on in our heads that we've got to just kind of put to one side. And because what the reality is, people overthink this massively. They really overthink this. And like most things professionally and in life, the essence of doing this well is is simplicity. And simple, it's easy, and like most simple things, it's hard to do. Simple done well is hard to do. But the essence of it is just to show up as who you really are, which is about being authentic, but it's also about just being you. So you don't, I mean, I think again, this idea of a personal brand, and everyone thinks I've got to create content, that I've got to be a massive thought leader, I've got to be really smart, I've got to be groundbreaking, I've got to be, kind of splitting the atom every time I post something, it's got to be amazing. And that's completely not true. It's the wrong way to think about it. And I think the better way to think about it is that you just have a conversation with other people in your marketplace or your world, and tell them what's going on in your world, what you're thinking about it, how you're experiencing it, and maybe some thoughts and suggestions about how you're navigating it, or maybe how you can help other people navigate it. So it's much more low key than I think we think it is. The tone we should adopt is one of conversation, not proclamation. So, and I think one of the things we forget, and I still do this, and I've been doing this a long time. I reckon I'm pretty good at this, because I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn. I've got 8,000 people following me, so I do a post. Typically 1,000, 1,500, couple of thousand people will like, or look, or do something with it. And we can make the mistake, or one can make the mistake of thinking, therefore, that you're talking to like a keynote speaker, which you're talking to 2,000 people in an auditorium, but you're not. What you're actually doing is talking one-to-one with people. It's a one-to-one communication. It happens to be 2,000 one-to-one communications, or 5 one-to-one communications. It doesn't matter. But the point, if you think of it that way, it's a personal conversation. So when you write, or create content or do little videos, and the videos are great, by the way, in the world of AI, that's just splurging out a whole lot of kind of meh kind of content that's sort of templated, and it's good, but it kind of dilutes everything else. But the videos are great. But so all we need to is think about, if you were having a cup of coffee with someone, and what you might chat about. That's the tone, that's the level. So it's peer to peer across a table, with t-shirts or shirt sleeves rolled up over a cup of coffee. It's not a presentation to an important client. That's the wrong way to think about it. Yep. So, that's the essence. That's the essence of it. So a model I talk about that may help people get into this. And by the way, this is quite a big thing. There's a lot we can talk about, but yep. Maybe one key way to help people to get into this. I've got a model that explains this, and fundamentally there are, in terms of building our influence, building our thought leadership, there's 3 things we need to bring to life. The first is our expertise. That's about what we know. The second is our experience, which is where we've been. And when we bring our expertise and our experience together, when we bring those 2 things to life, what we do is we communicate that we are a credible subject matter expert. And if you think about it, most people's LinkedIn profiles or your resume, when you're interviewing, it is a combination of your expertise, your qualifications and so forth, and your experience, how you've applied them, where you've been, where you've worked, where you've lived, that kind of stuff, expertise and experience. And that's cool. So it's good to be a credible subject matter expert, but it's not enough. And the thing we need to do, and this is what really helps you to stand out, is to bring the third element into this, which is your essence. So expertise, experience, and the third element, which is essence. When we bring our essence into conjunction with our experience, expertise and our experience, then not only do we come across as a credible subject matter expert, we also come across with conviction and also authenticity. So our essence, that's about our personality, our traits, what we like, what we don't like, what we're finding, feeling, experiencing. It's that personal, the human side of us. When that's the special sauce, if you like. When you sprinkle that across your expertise and your experience, it brings it to life, and it brings it to life in a way that only you can bring it to life. That's the uniqueness, because there's only one you. So it's your lens, your take, your experience of the world viewed through the lens of obviously a professional conversation about expertise and experience. And that's the authenticity, that's the conviction, that's the belief. That's what, when you create content in that mode, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm experiencing. I saw this the other day at work, and based on this, here's what I'm thinking. I've got some ideas about that.
Yeah.
What do you think? And that's the kind of tone, that's the conversation. And only you can do that through your lens, and only I can do that through my lens. And that's how we get that unique content that is valuable, as opposed, so it's not about I'm the only expert who knows X, Y, Z. Yeah. It's given I know this, and I've done that, got this expertise and experience, but this is what I'm feeling or thinking or knowing right now. And these are some observations, and maybe here's some ideas that might be useful for you. Or I'm stuck. What do you think? Right. So it's that conversational tone. Is that I don't know if that's clear. Does that make sense?
Sure. Absolutely. So the 3 E's.
Yeah. 3 E's. Yeah. Expertise, experience, and essence. And I'll shoot you maybe in the podcast notes. I'll shoot you a copy of the model, or hopefully help to unpack that.
Yeah, for sure. Fantastic. You've recently brought out a book. When I say recently, actually, I don't know when you released it, but it's called Time to Thrive. And
Time to Shine.
Time to Shine. I apologize.
Yes.
Not Time to Thrive. Time to Shine. Yeah, in the book, you talk about the ideas economy. So can you expand a little bit on that? I mean, what does it mean, ideas economy?
Yeah, I think the ideas economy is it's a continuation of what we're just talking about. It's where we're in an age now where creativity and adaptability is and these are kind of the soft skill elements. This is if you think in an organizational context, people aren't looking for information. There's an abundance of information. They're not looking, they're not looking for more data most of the time. We're just drowning in all that stuff. What we need is people who can use their thinking and ideas and creativity to make sense of all this noise and confusion and ambiguity that's been caused by COVID and now the aftermath of COVID. We need people with who can think through that, make sense of that, and bring those ideas and energy in a way that you can then commercialize. And I think because things can be copied and replicated so fast now, that the competitive advantage for us and our teams and our organizations is really the way we can organize and think and innovate much more than it is, we've got a thing and it's got a patent and no one else is going to be able to copy this for 10 years. That's even as I say, that seems like a very old school way of making money. And we've got to be much more creative, and I think it's coming back to that expertise, experience, essence piece. It's about blending, isn't it? Our kind of our kind of harder skills of study and expertise and technical skills, but also with that more creative and human side to create ideas, then communicating and connecting those ideas in a way that solves problems, and therefore we can commercialize to make money.
Right. Okay. And then you also talk about do, be, build. Do, be, and build. So I guess that's then leading on to the influence part.
Yeah. So again, the we talk about things you need to, yeah. If you think about, I mean, one of the things I talk about a lot is for us to be successful, to build stuff. There's I think a lot of people they shortcut the preparation work. We started talking today about the cricket, and which is a game, and to play games at a very high level or even competitively, enjoyably, you've got to do the pre-work. You've got to get fit. You've got to build a technical knowledge. You can't just expect to wander into the middle of the Oval or the middle of Edgbaston today and face some of the finest fast bowlers in the world and have a bit of a crack. And you're going to make a fool of yourself. You've got to do the work. So the do piece is those skills. I call it self-work. So I took this idea of do the self-work, which are things like morning routine, do fitness, get up early, get up every day at the same time, things like meditation and stretching and exercise and reading and journaling and gratitude stuff. Those sort of foundational core things are things that get your mind and body ready. So that's the do. So that's a do. Yeah. That's a do. Do those things. Next, you need to be. That's a mindset. You need to be. We talked about. We've shared lots of mindset ideas already. You need to be proactive. You need to be positive. You need to be curious. These are all, and again, these are really important things. And when you do the self work and you be all those great mindset things, be curious, be positive, be brave. When you do the first things and be the second thing, then that is when you're able to build things, build success, build profitable businesses, build your brand, for example. So do, be, build. That's how that works. And again, we've talked about how this is a really challenging but also opportunistic time to be living in, and it is.
Yes.
But you've got to do the work. I think a lot of people they want the silver bullet, become a billionaire or a gazillionaire overnight. Doesn't work like that. You've got to do the work. I work with, as you do, I work with a lot of successful executives at multiple levels, and entrepreneurs and business founders, and even the ones who have made it, multi-millionaires many times over. They still work bloody hard. They are getting up early. They're doing those morning routines. So I think people sometimes overlook the hard work. You've got to work hard to be successful, and that mindset piece is really important. One of the things that I think was really it was definitely encouraged and pushed in during the COVID years, and I think there's a big hangover of it now, is that victim mentality. You're a victim, stay safe, stay at home, and we'll look after you. The government will give you subsidized, and it's I think, don't get me wrong, really necessary in part, but way overdone. And I think it's the complete opposite of where we need to be. We don't want to be victims. We want to be heroes, which comes back to the second half hero. Got to take agency for your success. Take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for building and growing your professional success. Do the work. Have the right mindset. Show up. I mean, one of the most interesting things I'm seeing at the moment is this whole the work from home thing, and people really reluctant to go back into the office. You know what? If I was an aspiring corporate, I'd be in the office. I'm not saying be in there 60 hours a week, but I would be in there more than I'd be in there more than I wasn't, because that's where you get seen. That's where decisions are made. That's where you get to shine. And if the shit's coming down the pipe, and redundancies are in the offing, which is certainly a possibility in the next sort of time period. Who's going to be made redundant? The ones that are in the office, or the ones who is it just somewhere on a Zoom call? So I think people we need to be present. We need to be energetic, and we need to be have those great mindset pieces. That plus hard work. I think that's a really critical part of being successful. Yeah,
there's so many great points there.
So sorry, I riffed around a bit there. Sorry. Well, I hope I didn't lose you in the audience. I went off on a bit of a rant.
Not at all. I'm sitting here, hopefully not getting the echo coming through from people drilling the wall upstairs. So I'm hopeful it's not coming through. But anyway,
I can't hear anything.
Right. You also talk about humanity. being your greatest asset. So I'm curious, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've got a slide I use all the for a long time, and I talk, in the age of computers and AI, humanity is our point of difference. It sort of be reflecting a little bit on what I was just saying. It's the human side. It's the essence piece, our attributes, our hopes, our fears, our creativity, our passions, our faults. Those are the things that are really going to be, those are the things that make us stand out. It's interesting now, AI, ChatGPT has gone bonkers, which we all know about. And when you bear in mind ChatGPT is 1.1, what's 1.5 and 2.5 and 5.0? What are they going to be like? They're going to be extraordinary. We won't be able to compete with them in terms of, I don't know, sheer data, data validation or speed. We can't do that. But AI does that very well. But what AI cannot do is be human. And so, again, we've got to create meaning. We've got to interrogate that information. We've got to work out, with all the stuff we've got, with all the information or the problems or the challenges, we've got to engage our humanity to come up with solutions. And as leaders, I mean, again, one of the big things as leaders is we've got to connect with our people. Our people are humans. We've got to communicate, appeal, lead, attract, create confidence for and with our staff, and that all pulls very heavily on our humanity, and that's our point of difference. That's our point. So when we do that well, it's extremely powerful. And I say, and we look at the AI thing now. I mean, if you're, and they talk about, there's a lot of conversation now, isn't there, about this idea that soft skills are hard, and they are. That they are the hardest ones. They are the hardest ones to learn. People are complex. They're nuanced, and to get the best out of your team, to grow them in all these complex times, and a lot of them are displaced and working in multiple geographies, for example. You've got to reach your humanity. Yeah, enabled by technology for sure, but it's the humanity, the touch points. How are you doing? How are you connecting with them as a human being to get the most out of the team, and then use technology to supercharge your productivity to achieve performance and a commercial success? So yeah, humanity is super important. If you haven't got that, and if you haven't got that, I think you're going to struggle, because you're either going to fail, or you're going to be replaced by a piece of software, and that's not good.
It's highly fascinating topic. I mean, particularly in our world today. What are you working on at the moment? Any new projects? Any new books? Anything in the pipeline?
Yes. So right now I'm working on a few things. So actually, tomorrow I'm running a masterclass, which is all about helping professionals to transition to a post-corporate career they love, and which touched on some things we've spoken about today. Which again, about mindset, the hero's journey, that second half hero. We'll be talking about that. That's really important. The second, for a long time now, I've been kicking around second half hero, and it's interesting. It's interesting even talking to you about it. I think there's I've for a long time I've been talking about needing to write that book, and I think the second half hero book is it's in bits in my head, but I need to pull it together. I want to write one, and I want to turn it into those really short books. One of my favorite books is a book is called Do the Work by Philip Crestfield, I think his name is. Really good book, and it's beautifully short, but it's very, very powerful, because I think the reality, people haven't got time to read long books at the moment. I know that's a simplification, but it's broadly true. So I want to write a really powerful sort of 10,000 word book expanding on this second half hero idea, because I think it's, we've talked about it in the context of business, and maybe leaving corporate to set up your own, but also within corporate. I mean, we talked about, there's so much reinvention needed now. What got us here ain't going to get us there in terms of that pre and post COVID leadership. We've talked about the fact that leadership's really hard and really challenging. It is. But I think the second half hero, that idea of going on your hero's journey as an individual, as a leader, is super, super powerful. Taking risks, pushing yourself. And I love the idea that fundamentally we need to do everything we can to fully confront our total potential. Fully confront our total potential. That's a big word. It's a big sentence. Fully confront our total potential. And I think the second half hero piece is a very important part of that. So I'm thinking, working and thinking on all of that, because I think the time is right. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of angst, both professionally and I think with the AI thing and just with the world as it is. And I think the second half hero idea and the thinking that it contains could be helpful to quite a few people. And I love pulling it together, which is just as important.
There's a study out maybe a couple of years ago now saying that there's an expectation that the freelance world is going to explode. So I think there's a lot of people on that second half journey in the near future, if not already. So
well, that's right. And we haven't seen it yet. But I mean, I say, as I said earlier, I'm a massive optimist. But I'm also a good strategist and very logical. I can't see how the AI for the masses in ChatGPT and other things like that. I can't see how that doesn't end with a whole lot of existing jobs being automated. I just can't understand how that wouldn't work, because some of the things it can do, I'm going, gee, that's amazing. And then there are people in certain roles doing relatively manual or repetitive tasks, writing reports and stuff. So, well, AI can do that. And then once it does that, why would we need to employ a human being to do it? And I think the answer is you won't. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I think there's more people are going to be working for themselves. And as we've touched on, there's a lot of different qualities and attributes and a different mindset you need when you've essentially got to sell yourself every day. You and I both know we need to, if we don't do work that clients want to buy, we don't get to send invoices and we don't eat, which is very different to getting a salary dropped in to your bank account at the end of every month. So it really focuses the attention.
Yeah, to your point, imagine what this was like back in whenever it was, 2005, 2007.
Yeah,
that's ChatGPT today, right? So imagine version 14.
Absolutely, it's fascinating, but it is interesting. It's a different iteration of the same thing, and the same principles we've spoken about: second half hero, humanity, essence, ideas economy, creativity, agility, positivity, proactivity, energy. Those are the qualities. Sitting on your ass or just thinking I'll go and study a lot of things, get a lot of qualifications and the world will come to me, I think that's unlikely to be successful. You can't just qualify your way to success not in every instinct, but I think a lot of instances where you just used to be able to get lots of qualifications and you got a really decent job and you automatically got a good salary and there was good job, good tenure and security. I think that's a narrower and narrower field. You've got to be much more versatile and proactive. And we talked about this. I think you need to have a personal brand that's portable, that goes with you, because most of us are going to like to have multiple roles. We're going to maybe be employed. We're going to set up our own thing. We'll have portfolio careers potentially. We'll flip-flop back and forth, maybe have 10, 15, 20 careers in our 50-year working life. And so the idea of working for one company or two or three companies in our lifetime, that you and I probably grew up with that idea, I think that's increasingly, going to just not be the experience of a lot of people listening to this, or even ourselves.
Absolutely. I'm 63, so thank you for reducing my age by about 5 years earlier in this conversation.
You got more hair than me, Wayne.
Mark, I'm conscious of the time. Where can people connect with you?
Oh, look, I'll drop some. I'll send a. We'll do some notes. You can get in contact with me. Emails good. mark@markhodgson.com.au. So we'll put that in the show notes. I'll also send through to Wayne. There'll be a whole load of free resources. I'd love to give anyone who's interested and a listener a free e-version of my book, Time to Shine, which we've touched on. Interesting, because it's my mum's favorite book. That's one interesting thing about it. But the other thing interesting, it's actually a compilation of about 100 blogs that I've been writing over or 5, 6, 7 years now. And it's interesting because it covers it. You know, I've basically taken a compilation of those, put them together, and create a lot of short 2-3 minute reads along, very similar to what we've spoken about. But it also shows the importance of how you can build content and then repurpose it. So I didn't disappear for 6 months to, inverted commas, write my book, because that's a really poor use of your time. So if you like what you've heard today with our conversation, you'll love this book. There's also, if you're interested in the brand piece, there's a free diagnostic that you can use. I've prepared that will give you a personal brand report, gives you a score on where you are with your brand currently and some ideas on how to start. And there'll be a few other things as well. So yeah, I'll send that across the way. And if you look in the show notes, there'll be some resource, and I hope they're really helpful to you. And if you want to have set up a chat with me, I'll put the link in there as well.
Yeah, fantastic conversation, Mark. And just to reaffirm, the book is called Time to Shine, Not Time to Thrive. So my focus.
Time to Thrive's the second one.
Yeah, that's the next one that's coming, right? So fantastic conversation. As you said, we'll put it all in the show notes, and we'll link to different sites. I did that evaluation, by the way, and I think you told me I was a little bit slack with what I was doing. So
that's not true. You were awesome, as I would expect.
Excellent conversation, my friend. Hopefully our listeners have taken away a bundle of notes today, and go to the sites, go to the book, look at what Mark's doing. There's so much there that we can all learn from. Great to connect with you, Mark, and thanks for being on the ET project.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, and yeah, I'll speak to you again hopefully soon.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.